Hi there. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from, what country, what city. I'd love to hear from you. I knew the moment I saw Gavin Holt's assistant standing outside my office that something wasn't right. It was 3:18 p.m. on a Thursday, and Sarah never came down to the third floor unless someone was about to have a very bad day. She wouldn't look at me directly, just gestured toward the elevator with this tight, apologetic smile that made my stomach drop. My name's Kylie Preston. I'm 39 years old and I live just outside Portland, Oregon. For the last decade, I've worked at Vanguard Solutions, a mid-sized tech consulting firm that helps Fortune 500 companies streamline their operations. I started as a project coordinator, worked my way up to senior director of client operations, and for the past 3 years, I've been the one keeping half the company's biggest accounts from walking out the door. I wasn't just good at my job. I was essential. Or at least I thought I was. The elevator ride up to the executive suite felt like it took an hour. Sarah stood next to me, scrolling through her phone like we were strangers. I could feel the tension radiating off her. My hands were clammy and I kept wiping them on my slacks, trying to stay calm. The doors opened on the top floor and she led me down a hallway I'd walked 100 times before, but today it felt different. Sterile. Cold. Like I was being escorted to my own execution. Gavin's office door was already open. He sat behind his massive oak desk, hands folded in front of him, expression unreadable. There was a woman I didn't recognize sitting in the corner. HR, I assumed. She had a laptop open and a stack of folders next to her. Neither of them stood when I walked in. That told me everything. Kylie, Gavin said, his voice flat. Have a seat. I sat down in the chair across from him, my heart hammering so hard I thought he could hear it. The woman in the corner adjusted her glasses and opened one of the folders. Gavin leaned back in his chair, eyes fixed on me like he was reading a script in his head. We're making some organizational changes, he began. The company's shifting priorities and unfortunately, that means we're restructuring several departments. Your position is being eliminated, effective immediately. I stared at him. Organizational changes. Restructuring. All the corporate buzzwords they use when they don't want to admit they're screwing you over. I'd heard them 1,000 times in exit meetings I'd sat in on, but I never thought I'd be on the receiving end. What about my team? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. What about the Caldwell account? We're in the middle of a rollout. Gavin didn't even blink. We'll reassign it. Everything will be handled. The woman from HR slid a packet across the desk. It was thick, bound with a black clip and labeled with my name at the top. Termination agreement and release of claims. My throat tightened. You'll find your severance package outlined in the documents, she said. 2 weeks of pay, continuation of benefits through the end of the month, and a neutral reference for future employment. We ask that you review and sign by tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning. They wanted me gone and they wanted me quiet. Fast. I looked at Gavin, searching his face for any hint of hesitation, regret, anything human. But there was nothing. Just cold calculation. I'd worked alongside this man for years. I'd pulled all-nighters to save deals he'd nearly blown. I'd covered for him when he was too busy playing golf to show up for client meetings. And this was how it ended. I'll need time to review this, I said, picking up the packet. Of course, the HR woman replied. But we do need it back by 9 a.m. tomorrow. I stood up, legs shaking slightly, and walked out without another word. Sarah was waiting outside the door holding a cardboard box. She handed it to me like she was handing me a bomb. Your personal items, she said quietly. Security will walk you out. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just took the box, walked to my office and started packing. My team was at lunch, so the floor was empty. That was a small mercy. I didn't want to see their faces, didn't want to explain. I grabbed the framed photo of my dog, my coffee mug, a plant I'd kept alive for 3 years. Everything else could stay. Security met me at the elevator. A guy named Derek who I'd chatted with 100 times in the lobby. He wouldn't meet my eyes either. We rode down in silence and he walked me to my car in the parking garage. I set the box in the back seat, got behind the wheel and just sat there for a minute, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. Then I drove home. No music. No radio. Just the hum of the engine and the sound of my own breathing. When I got home, I dropped the box on the kitchen counter and tore open the termination packet. It was 12 pages long, printed on thick legal paper, every paragraph dense with jargon and legalese. Severance terms, benefit timelines, confidentiality clauses, Release of all claims. They'd already filled in every blank, signed every line, dated everything. All that was missing was my signature at the bottom. I flipped to the last page and looked at the date again. Thursday. One day before my 10-year anniversary. Not even subtle. My 10-year mark was supposed to hit at midnight on Friday. That's when my profit-sharing bonus would vest. $5 million. Not a promise, not a maybe. A contractual obligation that had been building since day one. $5 million. And they were trying to fire me 18 hours early. I felt a rush of heat crawl up my neck. My hands started shaking, not from fear but from rage. They'd planned this. They knew exactly what they were doing. They timed it down to the day, thinking I'd be too shocked, too scared, too grateful for the severance to fight back. I went straight to my closet and pulled out a plastic file bin I'd shoved in the back years ago. Dust covered the top and the lid stuck when I tried to pry it open. Inside were all my employment documents from the last decade. Tax forms, pay stubs, performance reviews, benefit summaries. And buried at the bottom, still in the clear plastic sleeve, was my original contract. I pulled it out carefully, like it might disintegrate if I handled it wrong. The pages were slightly yellowed, the corners dog-eared. I'd almost forgotten about this thing. But when I got hired, my friend Natalie had insisted I have someone look it over. Natalie's a contract attorney in Seattle, and she'd done me a favor back then by reviewing the paperwork for free. I remembered sitting in her office while she redlined sections and scribbled notes in the margins. I flipped to the compensation section and found the profit-sharing clause. The printed version was standard. Bonus vests at the completion of 10 years of continuous employment. But that wasn't what was signed. In the margin, in Natalie's handwriting, was a note in red ink. Suggest revision. Vests at midnight hours on anniversary date. And right below it, initialed by the company's legal counsel and dated, was the revised clause. Vests at midnight hours. Midnight. Not end of business. Not end of shift. Midnight. I stood there staring at it, heart pounding in my chest. They'd fired me too late. The bonus had already vested. It was mine. I grabbed my phone and called Natalie. She answered on the second ring. I was wondering when you'd call, she said. You knew? I asked, my voice tight. I had a feeling, she replied. Companies pull this stunt all the time. Did they fire you today? 3:18 this afternoon. Then they screwed up, she said. You vested at midnight. That money's yours. They can't take it back. I sat down on the edge of my bed, the contract still clutched in my hand. Are you sure? Dead sure, she said. You have it in writing. You have their signature. They signed off on the revision and it's legally binding. Don't sign anything they send you. Don't call them. Just sit tight. I exhaled slowly, the weight of it starting to sink in. I'll start pulling together what we need, Natalie said. Send me copies of everything. Contract, termination letter, any emails, anything that shows a timeline. We're going to make them regret this. She hung up and I sat there in the quiet of my bedroom staring at the contract in my lap. $5 million. Already mine. They thought they'd outsmarted me. They thought they could shave off 18 hours and walk away clean. They were wrong. That night I didn't sleep. I made coffee around 11, poured it into a travel mug and sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open. I set 3 alarms for midnight just in case, even though I knew I wouldn't need them. I was too wired, too focused. At 11:55 I logged into my account and stared at the screen. Nothing yet. I refreshed at 11:58. Still blank. At 12:01 a green notification popped up in the corner of the screen. Profit sharing bonus. $5 million. Vested. I refreshed again. The number didn't change. It just sat there bold and real, staring back at me. I took a screenshot, saved it in 3 different folders, backed it up to a thumb drive, and emailed it to myself with the subject line. They miscalculated. I forwarded everything to Natalie, then I got up and walked to the window. It was freezing outside, the kind of cold that makes your breath fog up the glass. I stood there for a long time just breathing. 5 million. Not a hope. Not a dream. Posted. They'd tried to cheat me out of it and they'd failed by 18 hours. I went back to the kitchen and sat down staring at my laptop screen. I must have refreshed my account 20 times that night. Then again the next morning. Friday came and the money was still there. Fully vested, no reversals, no errors. Natalie had told me not to do anything. Don't call, don't email, don't respond. Just wait. So I waited. but waiting felt like holding my breath underwater. Every time my phone buzzed, I thought it was them. Every creak in the house made me flinch. I couldn't relax. I paced from room to room, checked my email every 10 minutes, made more coffee even though I was already shaking from the caffeine. By Sunday night I was running on fumes. I hadn't really slept in days. I kept thinking about Gavin's face, the way he'd looked at me like I was nothing. Like I was disposable. And now he had no idea what was about to hit him. At 8:47 p.m. my email dinged. Subject line: termination documents, immediate action required. It was from Sarah, Gavin's assistant. No greeting, no pleasantries. Just a paragraph reminding me to sign and return the termination packet by 9 a.m. Monday morning. Said it was critical for processing. I stared at the email, my jaw clenched. 10 minutes later Natalie called. They just emailed you, didn't they? She asked. Yeah, I said. Pushing for a signature by tomorrow. Good, she replied. That means they haven't checked the account yet. They're still flying blind. Her voice was calm, but I could hear the edge in it. She knew what was coming. They're going to wake up Monday morning, see the vesting and lose their minds. She said they'll say you manipulated them, that you tricked them, that you're greedy. Get ready. I didn't do anything wrong, I said. Doesn't matter, she replied. They'll make it your problem anyway. Just hold the line. She hung up and I was left sitting at the table staring at the email. My pulse was thudding in my neck. I didn't reply. I didn't sign. I just closed my laptop and tried to breathe. That night I cleaned. I scrubbed the kitchen sink until it gleamed, vacuumed every room twice, reorganized my closet, folded towels I'd already folded. I couldn't sit still. It felt like I was holding something explosive, just waiting for it to go off. I kept hearing Gavin's voice in my head. Organizational changes. Restructuring. Playing on a loop like a broken recording. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted what I'd earned. But I knew the second they realized their mistake, they'd come at me like I'd stolen it. Around 3 in the morning I stood at my bedroom window and stared out at the street. Everything was dark except for one flickering streetlight at the corner. It was quiet. Too quiet. But inside I felt like I was on fire. They thought I'd fold. They thought I'd take their 2-week severance and disappear. They were about to learn otherwise. Monday morning came fast. At 8:52 a.m. my phone lit up. Gavin Holt. I let it ring. At 9:07 he called again. Declined. At 9:14 a text. Need to speak with you urgently. Please call when you can. I didn't respond. Just stared at the message, my chest tight. At 9:31, Natalie's name popped up in my inbox. Subject line: Notice of vesting confirmation, Kylie Preston. I clicked it. She'd sent a formal letter to Vanguard's legal team. Attached everything. The contract page with her handwritten revision, the company lawyer's initials, my account screenshots, timestamp logs. She'd laid it out like a court filing. No wiggle room. No way for them to claim it was an accident and walk away. 10 minutes later my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Straight to voicemail. Then it buzzed again. I watched the transcription appear on my screen. Hi Kylie, this is Lawrence Finch from Corporate Legal. We'd like to have a conversation about resolving this matter amicably. We believe there's an opportunity to work together on a solution. Please return my call at your earliest convenience. The voice sounded smooth, but I could hear the panic underneath. I forwarded it to Natalie. 5 seconds later she called. That means they're scared, she said. They know they messed up. They said they want to work together, I told her. She laughed, sharp and short. Yeah, they'll try to buy you off. Don't blink. They're not doing you a favor. They're covering their asses. I leaned against the counter, gripping the edge. What do you think they'll offer? Not enough, she said. First offer's always bait. He was right. That afternoon at 1:34 p.m. I got another call. Same number, another voicemail. We'd like to propose a settlement of $2.8 million in exchange for full resolution and mutual confidentiality. Please respond by end of business today. I read it twice, then forwarded it to Natalie. She texted back immediately. Ignore. They're lowballing. We hold. I didn't reply to anyone. Didn't answer the phone. Just turned off the ringer and waited. By 5 p.m. the calls started piling up. 3 more voicemails. The first one was polite, just repeating the same offer with a little more urgency. The second had an edge to it, something about protecting both parties from unnecessary escalation. The third came in at 6:47 p.m. Same guy, but this time his voice cracked halfway through. He said something about hoping we could maintain a professional dialogue. That one made me smile. Just barely. They'd miscalculated. They thought I'd panic, take the cash and run. But now they were the ones scrambling, trying to close a door they'd kicked open themselves. I didn't pick up a single call. Didn't type a single word. I sat in my living room watching the sunset, thinking about how quiet it had been on Thursday when they thought they'd won. Now it was Monday night and they couldn't stop calling. By Wednesday morning the calls had slowed down, but I got a text from someone I hadn't heard from in over a year. Jasmine Hale. She used to work in accounting before she got let go last spring. Her message was short. Did they fire you right before your bonus? I stared at it for a second, then called her. Yeah, I said. Day before my 10-year mark. She let out a bitter laugh. 9 years, 11 months. They came me on a Wednesday. I was supposed to vest Thursday morning. What did they give you? I asked. Severance and a handshake, she said. My lawyer said I didn't have a case. I signed the papers and walked out. I felt my jaw tighten. Did anyone else get hit like this? Think so, she said. I heard rumors about a guy in operations and maybe someone in HR. But nobody talks about it. And yes, you know. I hung up and called Natalie immediately. She answered mid-ring. Sup? I just talked to Jasmine from accounting, I said. They did the same thing to her. Almost the exact same timing. Her voice shifted instantly. If they've done this before, it's not a mistake. It's a pattern. We're looking at something way bigger than just you. I could hear her typing before I'd even finished talking. That afternoon she had me comb through everything I could remember. People who left suddenly, co-workers who disappeared right before hitting big milestones. I gave her names and she started digging. By Thursday morning she had 3 more. Jasmine, a guy named Derek from operations, and a woman named Kennedy from HR. All long-timers. All let go within 72 hours of their vesting cliffs. Different departments, same story. Quiet exits, small checks, airtight NDAs. Natalie was fired up. They've been running this scheme for years, she said. Systematic, coordinated, and probably illegal. At 7 a.m. Friday she filed a new legal demand. Not just for me. For all 4 of us. She named names, dates, contracts. Attached the termination documents, pointed directly at the pattern. She didn't file a lawsuit yet, just a warning shot. But the tone was unmistakable. We're coming and you better be ready. Then she reached out to each of them personally. Jasmine, Derek, Kennedy. She told them their NDAs didn't protect illegal conduct. If fraud was involved, if they were manipulated or fired with intent to block payments, they could speak up. Some of them were terrified. Kennedy asked, "Are you sure they can't come after me for this?" Natalie didn't hesitate. They can't enforce an NDA if they used it to cover up a crime. By Friday night, all 3 had agreed to let her represent them. Quietly but firmly. They wanted to be part of it. I sat in my living room with the lights off, phone glowing in my hand, reading the new draft Natalie sent. It was longer, sharper, and hit like a sledgehammer. She wasn't just calling them out now. She was lining them up for a full legal assault. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about all of us. They tried to push us out and shut us up. They thought they'd found a loophole that no one would ever compare notes, put the pieces together. But now we had the receipts and we weren't going anywhere. By Monday morning I expected another call and I got it. Only this time it wasn't begging. It was bait. They offered me $3.7 million. Said it would settle everything, but only if I signed a full confidentiality agreement and walked away from the others. Natalie nearly choked when I read the email to her. Still not enough, she said. And they're still trying to isolate you. They're getting closer, I said. Not close enough, she replied. We don't settle unless you get the full amount, legal fees covered, benefits continuation, and they agree to change their bonus policy. Period. I nodded even though she couldn't see me. It felt good having someone in my corner who wasn't afraid of them. That was Monday. By Tuesday morning they flipped the entire script. Natalie called me around 9:30, her voice sharp. They just filed on you. Federal court. They're suing you for fraud. I stopped what I was doing and just stood there, phone pressed to my ear. What? She sighed. They're accusing you of manipulating contract language, acting in bad faith, conspiring with me and tricking their legal team. My legs went numb. I sat down on the couch, staring at the wall. You're kidding. I wish, she said. 53 pages, All smoke, all scare tactics. They're trying to make this expensive and ugly. The email hit my inbox 20 minutes later. Formal copy of the lawsuit. I opened it and my name was in bold on the front page. The accusations read like fiction. They said I had intentionally misrepresented vesting terms. Said I worked with outside counsel to deceive company leadership. Claimed I wasn't owed a single cent. I scrolled through it, chest tight, hands shaking. Legal garbage stacked up to make me look like a criminal. I called Natalie back. They're trying to make me look like I broke the law. They know you didn't, she said. This is what they do when they're losing. They try to make it expensive, ugly, and public so you'll give up. What do? We fight harder. That night she drove down with a duffel bag and a laptop case. Said she'd be staying in my guest room for a few days. They want a war, she said. Let's give them one. We sat at my dining table for hours, laptop open, papers spread everywhere. Pull up your emails, she said. Everything from the last 10 years. I logged in and started going through it. Schedules, meeting invites, HR memos, performance reviews, client correspondence. Every shred of proof that I was doing my job and following the rules. She flagged every document with anything useful, even calendar entries showing I was working late or covering someone else's shift. At one point she stopped and pointed at an old email I'd sent to HR about my 10-year anniversary coming up. She tapped the screen. This is gold. You gave them notice. They can't pretend they didn't know. By midnight the table was buried in files. My neck ached. My eyes burned. But I wasn't tired. Not even close. Natalie stretched and poured herself another glass of water. They think we're bluffing. They think you'll fold. I looked at the mountain of evidence we'd built in just one night. My entire career laid out in emails and spreadsheets. They picked the wrong person, I said. She raised her glass. Damn right they did. Natalie stayed the rest of the week. By the time she left, we had a thumb drive packed with files and a case outline thicker than a textbook. 3 weeks later, discovery started. I couldn't see most of it. Legal stuff between firms, protective orders, back and forth filings. But Natalie kept me in the loop. She'd call when something mattered and I could always tell by her voice when it did. That Tuesday night she called after 8. I answered on the first ring. She didn't say hello. They kept the emails, she said, voice tight. I stood up from the couch. What? They didn't delete anything. Every email, every internal thread, all of it's on record. I stopped breathing. What's in them? She paused just long enough to make me nervous. The operations manager emailed legal in February. Subject line: termination planning. He literally asked how to structure Kylie Preston's departure to avoid large profit-sharing payout. My throat went dry. And legal responded? Yeah, she said. Multiple times. They gave him timing strategies. One of them actually wrote, recommend termination no later than 24 hours before anniversary date. I sank back onto the couch. They planned it. They tried to make it look like routine downsizing, Natalie said. But they were talking about you specifically. There's a whole thread about how to keep you cooperative and quiet. Another line says, avoid raising concerns about vesting by framing exit as structural necessity. I rubbed my face hard with both hands. Jesus. And that's not even the best part, she said. They did it with the others too. He kept reading line by line. An email about Derek. Terminate before March 12th to avoid payout eligibility. One about Kennedy. Confirm her start date. Make sure we're clear of the 10-year trigger. Same with Jasmine. Different departments, same exact language. They had templates, Natalie said. Cut and paste phrasing. They even used the same bullet points in the HR termination memos. I felt like I'd swallowed a stone. This wasn't just greed. It was procedure. They didn't just steal from me. They robbed every single one of us with a smile and a lie. Natalie's voice dropped lower. This isn't just one case anymore, Kylie. This is policy. And we're going to bury them with it. I stared out the window. It was dark again, like it always seemed to be when the worst news came. But my blood was hot. My hands were steady. Think they know what's coming? I asked. Not yet, she said. But they will. She hung up to prep the next motion. I sat in silence. The thing about people like that, they think the paper trail makes them powerful. Untouchable. But now we had their entire strategy in their own words. And I was done playing defense. By Friday morning, everything went quiet. No emails, no calls, not even a vague legal threat. Natalie said that meant one thing. They were folding. That afternoon she got the message. Request for emergency meeting. In person. Full authority to negotiate. We didn't say much. Just looked at each other and started packing files. They booked a conference room in a downtown building. 14th floor, all glass and fake professionalism. When we walked in, Gavin was already seated, looking like he hadn't slept in a week. Puffy eyes, wrinkled shirt. His hands were folded on the table, but his thumb kept twitching. Next to him sat the company lawyer, Finch. Clean suit, tight jaw. He barely glanced at me. Natalie and I sat across the table. She pulled out a notepad but didn't open it yet. Finch cleared his throat. We'd like to resolve this today. Natalie leaned back. We're listening. He slid a folder across the table. Full bonus. 9 months severance. 18 months of health benefits. Neutral reference. I didn't touch the folder. Gavin still hadn't looked me in the eye. Natalie didn't blink. And the NDA? Finch paused. Standard practice. Company confidentiality. Mutual non-disparagement. I spoke for the first time since walking in. No NDA. Both their heads turned. I'm not staying quiet about this, I said. You don't get to buy me off and bury the rest. Gavin opened his mouth, then closed it. Finch tried to smooth it over. It's standard to protect internal practices. Natalie cut him off. Not this time. You don't get trade secret protections for firing people to steal their bonuses. Long pause. Then Finch said we could agree to limited terms. No disclosure of proprietary business information, but no blanket gag order. That's fine, I said. I'll stick to facts. And there's plenty of those. Natalie leaned forward. We'll also need confirmation of revised vesting procedures. Transparent anniversary dates. No more last-minute terminations. It goes in writing or there's no deal. Finch hesitated. We can't dictate future practices. Yes, you can, she said. We want confirmation of policy changes. Clear vesting timelines. No ambiguity. It's non-negotiable. He sighed and looked at Gavin. Gavin finally spoke, his voice rough. We'll make the changes. Natalie didn't smile. Just wrote it down. One more thing. You're reaching out to the others. Jasmine, Derek, Kennedy. Voluntarily. You offer them what you owe or we reopen this as a class action. Finch didn't argue. Just nodded. Natalie stood up and slid the folder back to him. Send us the revised agreement by Wednesday. You have our terms. We walked out without shaking hands. In the elevator I finally exhaled. Natalie looked over at me. You good? Yeah, I said. Better than I've been in years. She nodded. They're lucky we let them walk away with anything. We didn't celebrate. We didn't need to. The win was already sitting in that room. On their faces. In their silence. In the way Gavin kept staring at the table like he couldn't look at the mess he'd helped create. They thought they could write me off. They didn't expect I'd write back. And this time on my terms. We got back to my place just after 2. I dropped my bag on the counter, opened my laptop and logged into the account. The money was still there. 5 million. No clawbacks, no tricks, no fine print. Just sitting there in black and white. Natalie glanced over my shoulder. Now that's a win. Gavin Holt resigned 8 weeks later. No statement, no farewell tour. Just disappeared from the company directory like he'd never existed. The lawyer, Finch, retired a few weeks after that. Quiet exit, same story. I heard through a former colleague that Vanguard had been hemorrhaging senior staff ever since. Directors bailed. New hires quit after a month. HR restructured twice in 1 quarter. Nobody wanted to be the next one caught in a scandal. I didn't say much publicly. Not right away. I let the fallout do its work. Then Natalie and I started getting messages. Operations teams, project coordinators, account managers. People who'd been around 8-9 years asking us to look at their contracts. Some of them were 1 clause away from getting screwed the same way I almost did. We didn't charge. We weren't building a firm. Just reading fine print and flagging traps. It spread faster than we expected. By the end of the year we'd reviewed over 90 contracts. Helped people renegotiate. Crossed out vague language. Rewrote vesting terms. Told folks what not to sign. We even caught a few shady NDAs buried in onboarding paperwork. I didn't need another big win. I'd already had mine. This was about keeping the next person from getting blindsided in the dark. I didn't blow the money either. No mansion, no sports car. I got a better apartment, something with a view and working heating. Paid off my student loans. Set up a fund for my niece's college. That was enough. I still live in Portland. Still go to the same coffee shop, still get groceries from the corner market. But now when the bills come in, I don't sweat. I just pay them. And in my office there's a framed piece of paper. It's the contract page with Natalie's handwriting in the margin. One note in red ink. Vests at midnight hours on anniversary date. I kept that page. Some things you hold on to. Not because you're bitter. Not because you want to relive it. But because it reminds you that the details matter. That the fine print isn't just bureaucracy. It's protection. And sometimes it's justice. Gavin thought he could cut me loose and pocket $5 million without consequences. He thought I'd be too scared, too grateful for the scraps to fight back. He was wrong. And every single person who's reached out to me since then, every contract we've reviewed, every clause we've fixed, that's the real victory. Because they can't do it to anyone else. Not anymore. Not without a fight. I look at that framed contract sometimes when I'm working late. I think about the moment I saw the revised vesting language. The moment I realized they'd signed off on their own mistake. The moment I knew I had them. It's not about the money. I mean, the money helps. But it's about knowing you stood up when they tried to knock you down. It's about proving that you're not disposable no matter how much they try to make you feel that way. Vanguard Solutions is still around. They rebranded last year, new logo, new mission statement, all the corporate theater you'd expect. But the people who were there when it happened, the ones who saw what they did to me and the others, they remember. And word travels fast in this industry. I get messages sometimes from people I've never met. Former Vanguard employees who left before things got bad. People from other companies who heard the story and want to make sure they're protected. I answer every single one. Natalie and I both do. We've become accidental advocates, I guess. Neither of us planned it. But when you go through something like this, when you see how easy it is for companies to exploit people who trust them, you can't just walk away. You have to do something. Last month I got a message from a woman named Helen. She worked at a logistics company in California almost 9 years in. She said her boss had been acting strange, avoiding her, making comments about budget cuts. She had a bad feeling. So she sent me her contract. I read it that night. Standard language, vague vesting terms, no protections. I sent her back a marked up version with notes, told her exactly what to push back on, what to get in writing. 2 weeks later she emailed me again. They'd tried to fire her. But she'd already gone to HR with the revised contract demands. They backed off. She's still there and her bonus vests in 3 months. That's the kind of thing that keeps me going. Not,